Hi, I'm Lucy from Giraffe. Today I'm going to show you how to add some project information and set up a places instance. We're going to start working in a project that we have set up already. This one is basically a map that's trying to give an overview of the future of Brisbane CBD and I guess Greater Brisbane. There's a lot of investment going on around the Olympics and some large transport infrastructure projects. And so the purpose of this map is to just help users walk through some of those precincts and projects and understand a little bit about them. So we're going to add a little bit more information to this map and add a new view to the end of the story. And this time we're going to be focusing on the Wool and Gabba precinct, which is the Gabba. There's a big famous cricket ground here. And it's also part of a priority development area, or a PDA, as the Queensland government called them. So, yeah, the next 10 minutes or so, I'm just going to spend a bit of time curating a view. We found this really great map that was published a couple months ago that just shows some of the new green connections around this purple PDA precinct. So we're just going to drop this in, do a little bit of work making it look pretty, and then we'll set up a view so that it becomes part of that story that we're trying to tell with the places. So I'm just going to turn off some of the existing data that I have, and we're going to work in this Wool and Gabba precinct layer. This has some imagery that we've brought in from the Queensland government already, so we'll probably use that in some shape or form. You can see this is quite up-to-date imagery, that there's already some stuff happening in terms of renewal in this precinct. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is bring in a reference layer. So I can see that the layer that I'm looking at actually has the cadaster as a reference here, which is really nice. So I'm just going to find which layer this is in. There we have the cadaster. I'm just going to turn that on as my reference point, and we're going to add a data layer and make our own image here. So I've saved that nice image, a high-res one, on my desktop here. So which one looks better? Let's bring in this one. And I'll just, hopefully spend only a minute or two just playing around with the resolution here. And I've got lots of nice reference points, including the cadaster, the waterway, roads, etc., to help me try and line these up. So just a little larger than we need to be here. In fact, nowhere near as large. So it looks like the scale of this drawing, something is going on here. So if I just turn that up, there's actually additional part here. That's what I was getting confused with. So this should be right once we just do a little bit of scaling again. Now you can make this, I guess, as accurate or slightly more generic, just really depending on the use case that you have. If it's as an overlay and you want someone to see a lot of great detail, then you will want to spend a fair bit of time just making sure that this overlay is correct. But if it's something slightly more diagrammatic and with a lot fewer reference points like the cadastral parcels, then you can make it slightly less accurate. It really just depends on what you're going for. Okay, nearly there. And so hopefully by the end of this video, what you'll see is that I guess the return on spending, anywhere from 10 10 minutes to a day if you know, if you have the time and the skill level, can return something really informative that can get published, you know, with a few clicks and put out there as info for the community, for stakeholders, for anyone to consume. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I'll just turn that up, make sure none of these corners look too silly. Fantastic. And we'll click next over on the right here. I'm just going to change the name. Gabba, we'll just call this a master plan of some sort. And save. So that's now going to get saved as a layer in the project. And I can use it either as a reference or actually publish it as part of the final view. So I'll just move this up into my project. What we might actually do is use most of it as a reference, and we'll kind of trace over some of those elements because I want to show you a little bit about how we can make it slightly more interactive. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I know that here I have a copy of that purple outline, so I'm just going to make a copy here. This is from a fantastic feature server that one of the we'll put this on a different layer. So I'll just make a new drawing layer called Wool and Gabba, and move this over here. So yeah, this layer is coming from a great feed that some Queensland government agency has set up, and we've just made a copy of that. And so now this is actually a piece of giraffe geometry that we can manipulate and do some interesting stuff with. So I'm just going to do some styling to this. So we'll pick a color for the fill. We'll get a line, color, align, width, and a fill opacity. And we'll make it similar to that purple that is there on the map. It's a nice sort of lavender shade. We might actually not give it a line. We'll just keep it nice and neat like that. Okay, we'll make the line color the same. And we'll go line opacity as well, just so that it looks lovely and clean. I'll just turn off my reference for a second. Might just go slightly higher. And what I'm going to do is then copy and paste it again. So there's two of them. But this one I'm going to do an offset of maybe 40 meters and should make it nice and larger. So we can see that the reference below has a bit of it's got rounded corners and a nice bit of a blur, so it's sort of expanding out a little bit. This geometry is a little bit too complicated to give the corners a really nice curve. We've got too many anchor points, but we can get a pretty similar sort of blush vibe, just playing around with opacities and doing some offsets. So really quickly we get quite a similar result. Now I did notice that we don't have a blush across the precinct, which we could do if we really wanted. We would, really simply just like edit and bring it in. But I think just for the sake of speed today, we will leave that. So the next thing I've noticed is that we have some sort of precinct outline here. So we'll just quickly trace that. Oh, sorry, I clicked too many times to end it. We'll just quickly trace it. Because this was coming from the image as a reference, we can't just click and make a copy of it. So we'll just quickly spend, less than half a minute just tracing it and then styling it. So we'll give this some properties. So we'll do line color, line width. We'll do fill opacity, and we'll give it a dash as well. So we'll make it 0 so that it has no fill. The line color will go black. We'll make it maybe 8. And we're going to change that dash to something like that, which looks good. we can come and edit this shape at any time if it's not quite accurate. So you can always play around with these elements. We can't give it a secondary dash like the reference one has, but I think, you know, that still really gives the idea, which is nice. So there we go, we'll make it nice and crisp. Okay, let's go ahead and do these arrows. So there's a couple ways that we can do arrows. The easiest one is to start with the annotations tool. We have a few different types of arrows. So we'll go major and we'll just trace over this one and just get it looking as similar as we can. So by default, if we just turn off that reference, we're getting a red line here. So first thing we'll do is make the width, I don't know, like maybe 30, 35 might do it. And we can change that red to a nice green that's quite similar. Next, what we'll do is, so it has arrowheads, but they're definitely not the size that we want. So we're going to say arrowhead length. And you sort of want to make them a similar size to the line width so that they're proportionate. And one other thing that we'll do is change the cap from to a butt, so that gives us a nice square one. If we made this round, we get sort of a rounded edge, but we'll make this a butt. Fantastic. So now we've got this arrow looking good. We can then, we'll just do one more. So if we were to start from scratch with this arrow, for example, instead of using the base one, so we'll just make a line, and then we're going to add a bunch more of these properties. So we'll go line color, line width, which is already there, and we'll get some arrowheads on that one. So start arrow, end arrow, arrow length, and arrow length. Okay, we're just going to copy the color value here and paste that onto this line right here. It was 35, 35, and 35. Oh. So now we've got those two arrows. And then with these dashed lines, we've got a couple options. So we could start with the dashed arrow here. So I'll just hold down snap to make sure it starts at the right point. Now immediately we can see that it's not large enough, so we'll just select it, paste in the color value again, make the line width 35, and we'll have to add those arrow lengths again. Now we don't need an arrowhead on both lengths, 35 and 35. So what we actually want to do is not have an end arrow, and you just have to play around to see which one's which. So that way it's just moving in this direction. And we want to now, first of all, we want to add change the line cap again. So that was rounded, so all of those dashes were over the top of each other. So we'll just make this a butt again, and let's change this to like maybe 5, 3, something like that. So if we just turn off our reference again, and we might just go slightly smaller. There we go. So we've got those arrows that are similar. A new feature that we have is just to hold down Alt or Option, and then you can just click and drag. So we'll move this down here, add it to this part of the line. Now just looking at that dash, it's a lot larger, so let's just go like 10. That looks a bit better. So 10, 4 is probably the combo of dash that we want. Now where else do we need? We'll just quickly add another line over here. There we go. Perfect. And then one more over here. Now we're going to go for a slightly different look on our base. So you might remember that I showed you we had some great up-to-date Queensland imagery. Now that's going to include a lot of the vegetation along the foreshore that we were sort of interested in. So I think we might use this space to tell the story, but the only thing that is really missing is some of these annotations and then the blue arrows. So we'll just really quickly, I've actually already got a layer in my transport layer here that has a lot of these new transport corridors that are being referenced. So the first one is the metro. If I just unlock this, I'm going to make a new drawing layer. So Wool and Gabba transport, and I'll make that my active drawing layer, make sure it's in my Wool and Gabba layer, and then we're just going to copy, Control C, just turn this off, Control V. There we go, there's one of them. Now they don't have the cross river rail layer, but they do have the station, so I am actually going to copy this as well and bring it across, and we'll just have an extra layer of info available to us. Now these are both probably a little bit too wide, so let's just go ahead and make them a little bit more subtle for our needs, which is nice. The only other thing I'll do is just grab some of the station locations as well. So we'll go metro stations. There's one here, here, here. And we'll just get the ones that sort of cross through the diagram. So I think there's really only those three for now. And we'll just paste them in here. And one more is those cross river rail stations. So there's just the one at Wool and Gabba for this precinct. And it was quite nice seeing those ferry connections, because obviously the riverfront, you know, that's certainly part of the scheme that they're trying to communicate here. So we may actually just grab 2, 3, 4, and we're just going to copy them over as well. Now, the reason that I'm copying them over and not really simply just turning some of those other layers on is because this diagram is going to be at quite a different scale to some of the other data layers that we had. So the advantage of having a copy of this line work here is that we have a bit more control over the graphic quality, the sizing. So again, I think I'm actually just going to take these down a bit. I don't want them to be the absolute main feature. So that's good. Now, what else do we have here? So let's get back to some of these annotations. So make another layer called annotations. And we'll just drop a couple of these here. So let's go here. This is text, which says new public open space. And what we'll do is make that text color a nice sort of dark green, and just play with we'll put that on a stick, I think, and go like that. So that's good. We might just go ahead and just use that same styling just for the sake of timing. Cool. And then that looks good. We'll just turn this off. So the only things we probably need to do is actually indicate what's happening underneath these. So We'll start with a point here in this circle, give it an offset of maybe, let's try 60 meters. That looks almost right if we put in the center. Let's just offset that again and just do another 10 meters. There we go. And we'll just give this some properties again: color, align, color, dash, opacity, and fill color or color. Oh, we did that already. Cool. So let's go with a nice green again. Go darker green. Line width, we'll increase that. Let's just decrease this a little bit by 5 meters. Perfect. Okay. So now we've got that green space. We'll probably just add this again over here, the Gabba, but we might just try and play with that. There we go. And if we just rotate that ever so slightly, looks pretty good. Okay, now I can see that the base map had, turn this off, and we'll turn the labels off, satellite. We'll keep those 3D buildings on because they also had that here. And we'll turn on our imagery underneath just to give it a little bit more flavor. And with the 3D buildings, I think that's starting to tell quite a nice story. So if you're happy with the view, and I might actually just quickly change these pins like that. I might actually make that text black, just given that it's now competing with some extra color on the map. And I'm pretty happy with that. It's starting to tell the story that we're interested in. So once you've got your combination of layers, you want to make sure that your group's all looking nice. We're just going to save that. And we'll head over to views, and we're going to make a new one here and call this Wool and Gabba. And we'll say New Gabba Stadium. We'll press save. Now that we've got that set up, what we'll do is now go over to Places. So Places is an additional app that needs to get added to a project. And once you have it activated on a project, you play with your general settings, which we already have set up, and I'll go to Organize Layout. Now, we actually want to add a new location here. So we have already a pretty consistent story, and I really just want another category added here. So we'll go back to Organize Layout. We're going to add a new location and call this new, or maybe we'll call it Gabba Redevelopment. And we'll come back to the color in a second. If I just edit this one, and I can just grab that color from there. So we'll edit this one. Now we want to add, this is I guess a sort of like a tree. This is our parent up here, the name of the actual project, and these are all children. And within each children, you have a theme and then the actual content. So we want to now add content to that theme. So the view we're going to choose is the one that we set up already. We don't want an image or a legend, but if you did, you really simply grab the URL of where that image or legend is hosted and then drop that in. And now the best way to actually start editing that and check it out is to go to preview. And so now we have Gabba redevelopment at the bottom, and I can just click straight through to that one. It's obviously going to load that content on our screen, which is fantastic. And we can actually start editing. So I'm just going to get rid of the name here. So we'll leave that empty. And what we would do is drop in some content here. So I'll go away and find some text, but you use this text editor to add any content that you're interested in, and then you are ready to go. So now we have this really fantastic, story that is told across the whole greater Brisbane area, and we've just added some more content. So we've got one precinct here and then another one here with the combination of layers and data that we set up. So that's it. Thank you.